Welcome back to our coverage of the Mackinac Policy Conference. I'm Christy McDonald with One Detroit Public Television. We're so glad that you're with us as we've been live streaming the conference throughout the week, so you're able to see the sessions and hear some of the conversations that are happening up here on the island. And one of the biggest topics of conversation is Michigan's economic recovery as we continue to move through the COVID pandemic. And joining me right now is Susan Corbin. She is the director of the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity in the state of Michigan. Susan, it's great to see you.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to talk today.
And you're someone that a lot of people want to talk to because we're kind of taking this big frame view of where we are in the state of Michigan right now and where we're headed. So perhaps you could kind of give us that wider lens of how Michigan is positioning itself right now in a recovery.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've all experienced just some incredible events, incredible stressors this past year and a half.
Right.
We hope that we're starting to get to the end of the pandemic. Of course, there's still issues around getting more people in Michigan vaccinated. But we have some incredible opportunities right now. Prior to even the President's American Recovery Plan, we have some resources in Michigan now. Our economy is really rebounding. We were anticipating that we would have a $3 billion deficit this year, but with some of the decisions and choices that the governor made this past year and a half, we now have a $3.5 billion surplus in our budget. And now we have these federal resources that are coming into Michigan. We're expecting $6.5 billion through this, through the latest ARP plan, and that doesn't include all of the dollars that will also be going to some of our local communities. So I think that, the governor yesterday rolled out her My New Economy initiative. She rolled that out after very thoughtful conversations with so many stakeholders across the state. Business leaders, small business owners, educators, child care providers, just an incredible group of stakeholders that she talked to. And she developed, a plan that I think, many of us think, will put Michigan in a stronger position, put our economy in a stronger position than it was before the pandemic.
Yeah, you talked about child care, and I do want to talk about that because that has a huge impact on the amount of women who are able to return to the labor force who left during the last year and a half or so. But with this great resource and great amount of money comes great responsibility, right?
Yeah.
And so would you say from all of the work that you've done over the years, I mean, this is a once in a generation kind of investment that we can put into the state. Obviously, there are parameters around how the money can be used and when, the timing wise, but what could this set up for Michigan in terms of looking at infrastructure, in terms of job training that we might not have had the opportunity to engage with?
Yeah, absolutely. Correct. A once-in-a-generation opportunity. I've had my career in state government, and we have never had anything to the magnitude of what the resources that we are going to have over these next few years. The governor has talked about 3 significant pillars, at least in my department, where we know we're going to be providing significant focus. The first is to bring more people into the middle class. We know in Michigan that almost 40% of our households still can't afford their basic needs. We need to put people in better paying jobs and jobs that have pathways to greater potential. I think the governor had a great start with a very strong bipartisan program called Michigan Reconnect and also Futures for Frontliners. We have nearly 170,000 people who have enrolled and now have a tuition-free pathway to a 2-year community college degree or a skills certificate. So we want to build on that, do more to bring greater skills to people in Michigan. She also wants to focus on small businesses, Main Street businesses that were disproportionately impacted during COVID.
Are we talking about businesses that are 25 employees or less, or I mean, is that kind of around this?
We're talking about assistance at many levels.
Okay.
We're talking about micro businesses that may only have a handful of employees, less than 10 employees. And then we're talking about the more traditional small business definition of 500 or less, different kinds of resources for businesses of that size. And then we're also talking about out resources for high-tech companies, new exciting ventures that we know would be good to grow in Michigan and would create more jobs.
Yeah, those jobs of the future that everyone's talking about, saying we want to be prepared for the jobs of the future. What exactly are those jobs going to be, and do we have the infrastructure kind of set up for that? What's the unemployment rate in Michigan about right now, Susan?
We have had 8 months of decline. We are now between 4 and 5%.
We a little above the national average? Like where do we stand
Our
nationwide?
unemployment rate is below the national average. What is not below the national average and what we need to work on is our labor force participation rate. We know in Michigan that we have a higher percentage of people who are not in the workforce. And so we need to get to those people and help them get better skills so that they can come back into the workforce in a high-wage job.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, why do you think that is? Because we hear from so many people, oh, there's job wanted here, I can't fill enough positions. Where's the disconnect from getting more people back into the labor force?
Well, before the pandemic, we knew in Michigan, if we looked out at our future, that we were going to be facing this. Our birth rate is not keeping up with our death rate. We have a lot of baby boomers that are retiring, and we don't have younger people coming up in the same numbers that we're seeing in retirement. But I think the pandemic has exacerbated that. You mentioned childcare. Women were disproportionately impacted during this pandemic. A greater percentage of women have had to leave the workforce because they're caregivers. We like to think that, it's more equal, but we know that women.
We know it's not statistically.
Yeah, it's not.
It shows it.
They're caregivers, not just for their children, but for vulnerable people in their households, for their parents and for others. And so women have not been able to come back into the workforce like men have. So it's critically important that we get our kids back into school. The governor's also proposed, and in this budget we've got significant dollars going to child care. So kudos to the governor and to the legislature for understanding how critical the issue of child care is to provide greater access, greater pay for those people who are providing child care.
And a lot of child care providers are women.
Yes. The most difficult job I have ever had in my life, hands down. When I was in high school, I worked in a daycare center. And it's absolutely the most challenging job I've ever had. So she has proposals to pay those people more. And then also proposals to offset what households have to pay for childcare. If you're in a low-wage job, I don't know how you manage.
Yeah, it's almost like you're breaking
care.
even, or it's not even worth it for you to go to the job if you're paying out more in childcare than you can even exist it. We're talking about how things will change, and when we talk about caregiving and we talk about flexibility and the future of work, we've kind of seen things upend the way a traditional workplace would be, and what those jobs would look like. What are you hearing in terms of people gravitating towards different professions, different careers, starting over again, and finding the places that they want to be because they align their values with whatever the corporate values are of that company or that fits their lifestyle? What are we seeing in that kind of, I think, seismic shift when it comes to work?
I think a lot of the information that we have there is anecdotal or national survey information. We're not seeing information in our data yet about that, but absolutely what we've all gone through in this past year and a half has caused many of us to rethink the choices that we're making in life. We're hearing about a lot of people who are, maybe not quite at the traditional end of a career retirement, but they're making decisions to retire early. But there are also opportunities. With all of the federal stimulus dollars that we've had in Michigan, we're hearing from people who have made career shifts and they've opened their own businesses. It's provided new opportunities for them. So I think the programs and the things that we're talking about with the ARP dollars are things that will help people continue on that path.
How do we connect people now? So we've got the dollars for the programs and rolling out programs or fortifying programs that are already in place. How do you make sure that the people who need to hear this get the support, get pushed in the right direction?
Well, Right now, the legislature is finalizing the budget for fiscal year 22, and then we expect that we will start working with our legislative partners in talking about how the ARP dollars will be allocated. It's going to be a dialogue between the governor and the legislature, and between department leaderships. And our counterparts in the legislature. Also, we know a lot of stakeholders across Michigan are weighing in, not only with the governor, they're weighing in with their legislative leadership on how they think these dollars should be spent. So that's something that people can do now. If they have that connection, they can reach out to their legislator. They can reach out to any of associations or their employer that they belong to, who might be an advocate for how those dollars should be spent. So as that works through the legislature, then we'll be able to provide more concrete information. But I would tell people, follow the news. They can certainly visit our website, michigan.gov/LEO, Leo, and as soon as we have information, we'll keep updating our website and putting information out there.
Okay. Let's talk maybe a little bit about unemployment and some of the services that people have tried to encounter over COVID. Yeah. We've talked about all of the negative impact the pandemic has had on, and sometimes in the way that we work and the systems that we have. Sometimes there's positives that come out saying, you know what, we had to tweak this overnight or totally change this, and it would have taken us 5 years to make the change that we had to do overnight, and we're better for it. What would you take out of maybe systems, processes, or changes that have happened that are now better in the long run for the way that government is operating and maybe processing some things?
Yeah, well, just the way we work in state government. I was just at a lunch where the governor's chief operating officer, Trish Foster, talked about this. I think when we talk about crisis management, how we learn to work together, work remotely, use new tools in the way that we work, and to know that we needed to be immediately responsive. I think all of the lessons that we learned there will translate into how we continue operating as we emerge from this pandemic over the coming months.
All right, Susan Corbin, the director of LEO, I really look forward to having conversations in the months to come as you start putting together some different things, and we embark, I think, really on this larger question of the future of work, especially here in the state of Michigan. It's good to see you.
Yeah, and thanks for talking about these issues and sharing this information.